Well, all right. Well, let me jump on over to the Rightside Way monologue. As we do often, I start the show every single day with the Rightside Way, and I put my thoughts into place, and sometimes share philosophical points. Sometimes I'm talking about points of news, points of faith, and I will tell you that today is what I would call red meat for the soul. So let me start by asking: did you ever see the movie Rocky? I hope so. I mean, you might not be a real American if you haven't seen Rocky. It's a classic about the underdog defying the odds. Sylvester Stallone, he captured the hearts of the whole country back in the 70s, launched his career to the next level on the character of Rocky Balboa, a small time thug with a big heart who had dreams of being a great boxer. And then he got his chance. He beat the reigning world champ Apollo Creed, and he spawned a whole series of hit movies. And there was a scene in Rocky 3 when Rocky was getting hammered by Hulk Hogan playing Thunder Lips. I mean, it was a mess. It was a fight gone wrong. Rocky was getting steamrolled in what he thought was going to be a friendly charity match. And then his brother-in-law, Paulie, sitting on the ringside, yells from the ringside. He says, "Rocco, remember the neighborhood." What? Did that even fit? Yeah, it fit. Because you know what he was doing? Paulie was reminding Rocky who he was. He was reminding him that hard times mean you need to look back and remember who you are and then face what you got. See, it's important to remember who you are. And what do I mean by that? I mean that when life beats you down and things seem to be getting out of hand, that you need to have a sense of identity that carries you. Look, I've seen guys, I see them all the time, who forget who they are and they become what they do. That's a scary business. Like a politician who's lost without being in office because he has no identity. Or a soldier who has no idea how to dress in his off-duty hours because he has no uniform to put on. Or a pastor who can't exist without his pulpit. Look, if you don't ground yourself in your true identity, then what you do is going to become your identity, and that's never a good thing. When I was a kid, my dad used to do this thing. I was named after my dad, so I'm a junior. Every once in a while, my dad would ask, "Who are you?" And I always knew the answer. I'd say emphatically as a little kid, "I'm Philip Wayne Williams, Jr.," with a heavy emphasis on the junior. And he'd always say, "That's right, don't you forget it." And it meant a lot to me, without me even realizing it. You know why? Because it grounded me. It told me that I belonged. It told me that there was an unshakableness in my name. I was accepted. I was all right. I was rooted. So that thing that my dad used to do about reminding me who I was, it spawned something that I did when my kids were growing up. I had this thing that I did with them where I would catch them off guard, and I would suddenly say to one of them, "Hey, how come I love you so much?" And they always knew the answer. It was always just because I'm your boy or just because I'm your girl. Sometimes I'd go further and I'd say, "You mean to say it's not because you're so good looking?" Nope. Not because you get good grades? Nope. Not because you're good in sports? Nope. And I'd say, "That's right. And don't you forget it. I love you just because you're my boy or my girl." It was a grounding. It was a belonging. It told them there was an unshakableness in who they were. They were accepted. They were all right. They were rooted. Nothing could change that. Now, I say all that because last night I was thinking about our current state of politics. And I was questioning how it is that some candidates can inspire with their words, their actions, and their policies, and some can just alienate. I mean, I'm watching right now with morbid fascination as the progressive left continually tells us that what they believe is wrong with us is what we need to believe is wrong with us. They tell us over and over again that we have no heart, that we have no hope, that we have no strength, that the only way they can help us out of our self-inflicted, demeaning, and apathetic existence is to break us and remold us into a new image. Because, the progressive left believes the old image of America is just too far tarnished and out of touch with the new truth. The new truth. Silly rank and file masses of Americans, what do we know? You don't need border controls. Don't you know there's people out there who need what we have and they should be able to come and take it? You don't need men to stay out of women's sports. You don't need drag queens to stay out of children's libraries. Don't you know they should be allowed access to your children so they can live out their truth? You don't need that silly, dirty carbon fuel to power your car, your stove, your heater, your everything. Don't you know that climate change is the existential threat to America? You don't need police to have safe streets. You don't need DAs to lock up criminals. You don't need jails to keep bad guys put away. Don't you know that we are a systemically racist nation and law enforcement is a sign of some kind of privileged totalitarianism? Here's another one. You don't need a strong military. Peace through strength. That's silly. Don't you know the world will embrace a quiet, demure America and leave us alone if we stay quiet on the world stage? Look, I could go on and on like this, but that's the kind of thing that the liberal progressive left beats us over the head with on a regular basis. If you spend all your time listening to the progressive left, you might come to the conclusion that America has just been an illusion for 250 years. Like we never had it right. We have no real identity. We're not grounded in truth and liberty, that we need to be broken somehow. No sense remembering who you are, says the left, because who you are is just bad. Well, I reject this. I'll be honest with you, I do. I reject it completely. We're going to vote in 2 weeks, 13 days actually. And I say, remember the neighborhood. Remember who you are. Don't let the left tell you anything different than the reality that this is a great nation that has been a world changer for good from the time that it was founded. There's no shame in saying that America's great, because it is. There's no regret in America being known as the city on a hill, a light to the masses. I mean, why do you think that so many still want to come here? And as I pondered all of this, I could not help but think of Ronald Reagan. I told Charlene last night that it occurred to me that part of what made Reagan so inspirational was that he literally spent time, constantly and unequivocally choosing with real intention to remind us who we really are. Reagan didn't tell us to stop being or what to stop doing. Reagan simply reminded us of who we are and how much we have to offer. In a dark world at the time that was dealing with communism and wars and economic downturns and sense of defeatism in the wake of Vietnam and Watergate, the Iran hostage scandal, the whole depressing Carter presidency, Ronald Reagan came on the national scene with a message that America has no need for apology. America just needed to remember where it came from. Reagan first burst onto the political scene with a speech that galvanized all of America. He was a Hollywood actor, but he loved this country. And in 1964, Reagan gave a speech at the Republican National Convention that told America everything that we had gotten right, and that all we had to do was remember why it was worth preserving. Speaking of the advances of communism, he told us that those who would say that it's, quote, better to live on his knees than to die on his feet, that they don't speak for the rest of us. Reagan went on to say, if nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to go ahead and live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard around the world? Reagan said, you and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. And Reagan, by the way, did not say, go find the courage. He told Americans, you and I have the courage. And he ended that speech by saying, we'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness. Notice once again that Reagan literally said, preserve for our children. He didn't say break it and rebuild it. He didn't say trashy things about who we are and where we came from. He didn't insult or demean or discard. He said that what we are and who we are is worth preserving for our children. It's an identity. It's an unshakableness. It's a grounding. It's like me talking to my kids. It's like Polly yelling at Rocky. So as I go into this election right now, as all of us go into this election right now, I'm praying that we are reminded who we actually are, that we are grounded in our national identity, that nothing can shake us from knowing that we have roots and legacy and a good name that is worth preserving. So remember the neighborhood, and don't you forget it. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way.